Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the official rulebook for something that's, well, a pretty huge deal in climate action. How you actually turn the act of protecting a forest into a carbon credit that is credible, verifiable, and, actually valuable. All right, let's get into it.
And this quote right here, it gets straight to the heart of it. This isn't just some academic exercise in counting trees. The whole point is to build a system with such rock-solid integrity that it can attract serious long-term investment. It's about creating a financial engine that's powerful enough to save and restore the world's forests. So the whole system is built around this one core idea, REDD+. You can think of it as a set of rules designed to financially reward countries for keeping their forests standing. And it's not just about stopping deforestation. It's also about conservation and managing those forests for the long haul. This is the big idea we're going to see in action.
Now, to make a big idea like that actually work in the real world, you need a seriously detailed rulebook, and that is exactly what we're digging into today. It's called the REDD+ Environmental Excellence Standard, or just TREES for short. This is the high-integrity playbook we're gonna unpack.
Okay, so let's just get these two names straight, because you'll hear them a lot. TREES is the standard itself. It's the set of rules. ART, which stands for Architecture for REDD+ Transactions, is the organization that manages the whole thing. They're the ones who run the TREES standard and oversee the entire process, all the way from registering a project to issuing those final verified credits. Their whole mission is to guarantee integrity, both for the environment and for the people involved.
So who actually gets to use this top-tier rulebook? Well, the system is built for big ambition, to work at a massive scale. Let's take a look at what it takes to even get in the door. First thing you'll notice is this isn't for just anyone. It's for governments, either a whole country or a large subnational jurisdiction, like a state or a major province. And they have to have their act together, you know? They need a clear, official definition of what counts as a forest, and they have to prove they're following the laws. But these last 2 points, they're absolutely crucial. No ex-ante crediting means you only get credit for results you've already achieved and proven. And additionality, well, that just means the forest protection has to be happening because of this program, not something that was going to happen anyway.
And that idea of additionality, it brings us to what is maybe the most mind-bending challenge in all of carbon accounting. It's a question that honestly sounds almost philosophical.
I mean, really think about that for a second. To issue a credit for a ton of CO2 that wasn't emitted, you first have to prove that it would have been emitted. So yeah, this is the core challenge. How do you create a credible, conservative, and verifiable measurement of a future that you successfully stopped from ever happening?
So how does TREES solve this puzzle? It comes down to 2 things: data and being conservative. First, a government has to look back and meticulously calculate its historical deforestation rate. That's the baseline. But then, and this is key, the official starting line for earning credits, the TREES crediting level, is set below that historical average. You only start earning credits when you prove you're doing better than you have in the past. And they're not just pulling this number out of thin air. The standard is super specific. That historical baseline has to be calculated using a 5-year look-back period. This gives you a really robust, data-driven starting point, and it smooths out any weird one-off years to give a true picture of what's been going on. Okay, so we've got our starting line. Now we need to figure out how to actually count the carbon. We need the formula for calculating the emissions that were successfully avoided during a crediting period. At its core, the math is actually pretty straightforward. You take your activity data, which is basically just asking how many hectares of forest did you save, and you multiply it by an emission factor. That factor is just a number that tells you how much carbon is packed into that specific type of forest. So the area you saved times the carbon density of that area, that gives you your total emissions reduced. Simple as that. But, okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? We all know the real world is, well, it's messy. What happens if you do a great job protecting a forest here, but the loggers just pack up and move next door? Or what if a forest you got credit for saving burns down 5 years from now? A credible system has to have answers for these very real risks. So the system has to deal with 2 major headaches. The first is called leakage. That's when you don't solve the problem, you just move it. You stop deforestation in one place, but because of your project, it just pops up somewhere else. To deal with that, you gotta take a deduction from your credits. The second headache is a reversal. That's when the actual physical carbon you stored gets released back into the atmosphere, maybe from a fire or illegal logging. All that progress is literally reversed. So how do you handle something as unpredictable as a forest fire? With a really clever idea called the buffer pool. You can think of it as a collective insurance policy for the climate. Every single project that issues credits has to put a certain percentage of them into this shared pool. That way, if one project suffers a big reversal, credits from the buffer are canceled to cover that loss. It ensures the whole system stays balanced and credible.
Okay, this is it. This is the moment we've been building towards. We have our baseline, our core math, and our tools for managing risk. Let's put all the pieces together and see how we get to that final verified trees credit, the thing that actually gets issued.
So you see, you don't just get credit for your raw performance. It's a whole process of deductions. You start with your gross reductions, that's your results against the baseline. Then you subtract a bit for any potential leakage. After that, you contribute your slice to the insurance buffer. And then you take another deduction just to be safe to account for any statistical uncertainty in your measurements. It's only what's left over after all of that. That's the final number of trees credits that get verified and issued. And that right there, that's the whole point. All of these steps, all of these conservative deductions, they aren't there just to make things complicated. They are there to build trust. This tough, rigorous process is what gives a trees credit its high integrity. It's what makes it a credible, bankable asset that can unlock the kind of climate finance our planet's forests so desperately need. So that leaves us with one big question to chew on. Now that we've seen the kind of machinery that's been built to produce a truly high-quality, high-integrity carbon credit, what does that really mean for the bigger picture? If we can actually create a trusted global market for protecting and restoring nature, what role could that play in solving our shared climate crisis? It's definitely something we're thinking about. Thanks for joining The Explainer.